my fellow readers, it's Dark Symphony 777 with another fan fiction review. As always, a link to the story will be in the description below. Please like the video, subscribe to that channel, click on that bell for notifications, and leave a comment in the comment section below on your thoughts, on your thoughts of the story. And finally, this is my opinion. My opinion is not indicative of everyone in the world, so please respect that. I got hiccups. So, the story I'm doing a review of is Zoro's Odyssey. It is the sequel to The Straw Hats and the Iliad. And I have to say, I like the story. I like that it tried to be very different in terms of genre and tone and even writing style from Straw Hats and the Iliad. And it did work for the most part. There is two niggling problems that I have with it. I'll talk about those more when I get there. But let's just get into the review. So, in terms of the plot, though, so just like Straw Hats in the Iliad, we have to set up where in the One Piece timeline this story takes place. So this takes place during, well, near the end of the 2-year time skip, and all the Straw Hats are slowly starting to return to the Sabati archipelago. So basically what happened is Zoro was training with Mihawk for the 2 years, and he became friends with Perona. Everyone loves Perona, am I right? I love Perona. I think Perona is bar none one of the probably the main reason to watch Thriller Bark or read Thriller Bark if you're a manga fan. I personally think Usopp versus Perona is like one of the most creative fights in any shonen anime, simply for just sheer creativity because of how much stuff the Oda gets away with. At the mention, I love the ending with like Usopp hitting Perona and giving her PTSD with the balloon, like pop, it's like as she passes out. But this takes place at the end of the 2-year time skip as everyone's going back to meet up. Zoro gives Perona his bad sense of direction by giving her the wrong Vivre card to send them back to Iliad, where they meet up with King Cygnus, who's turned into a goose. Boys. So, King Cygnus actually warns Zoro and Perona that there is someone, going around turning people into animals, kind of, in his own honk way, like honk, 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 pinch nose and stuff like that. And Zoro's like, okay, fine, and then he goes and looks for whoever's doing it, and then he gets turned into a fox. Ow, it's kind of sad. And Perona's like, I'm here to save the day and spook whoever's doing this. But we're going back to Perona in a bit. Meanwhile, Zoro, as a fox, goes and explores Ilia, the city of Ilium, finds out that Helena thinks that Zoro died during the end of the first half of Sabati Archipelago, before, with Bartholomew Kuma just completely launching him everywhere. Because Kuma got, Bear Man got a Bear Man. With Bible, if you would like to go anywhere, where would you like to go? I like to go visit Mihawk. Okay. I push you to Mihawk. Wait, that's not what I meant! Yeah, Kuma got a Kuma. So Helena thought Zoro died. And she's basically went on this whole kind of depressive streak where she basically cut the world government off from her. It's like, you're not allowed. We're not selling Season to anyone. And she basically did all these bad things. Like, she pissed off all the gods except for Athena by saying no one's allowed to worship at any of the temples. She destroyed Hera's temple. She basically, in the story, she cuts off the statue of Aphrodite. And she pisses everyone off except for Athena. And so why did she do that? Well, in the story, it's revealed that she had babies. Her and Zoro had babies. and she miscarried one of them. Like, one of them came to term, one was pre-birth and died in her arms. Zoro, and she blamed over the fact that she found out that Zoro was dead, because Zoro apparently doesn't realize Zoro has anime plot armor and stuff like that. And miscarried the first baby. She gave birth to the second baby. And, now, her grief controlled her, and she basically ruined Ilium's economy, and so her father had to take over, reestablish selling the Sea Prism to the world government to try and get the economy back on track and try and get Helena's get married again, so that way they can trying to stabilize the economy as best they can, while Helena's still grieving for Zoro, and so she issues a challenge. These are 12 axes. If you able to cut 12 axes, you get married. And no one's able to do it over the 2 years. There's one guy named Calypso. He kind of is like, oh, I'm powerful, but I don't. He's like a Jamaican guy. I'll talk more about him when I get to characters. It's fine. So over the course of the plot, we find out that the Navy is trying to take over the Isle of Ilium because they were really salty over the fact they stopped selling us Sea Prism stones. Like, all right, now we'll take over the island. Roger. Roger. And also trying to do this assassination plot to kill Helena, to possibly kill the baby. Meanwhile, there's another villain called Cersei who works for the Navy, and her whole shtick is just basically turn people into animals. Yada yada yada. Old McCersei had all form. Yeah, that's basically what she does in the story. Meanwhile, the main villain is called Vice Admiral Regent. I can't remember the actual rank. I know his name is Regent. I know he does lots of crazy stuff. But yeah, he brings Kobe into it. Yeah, you know Kobe from work for the Marines. He's actually a good guy with Helpamo. And that's kind of more or less the plot. It's the first half is just trying to figure out what's going on with Helena, and the second half is just them fighting the Marines. And finally, the last chapter or two is just Zoro and Helena trying to catch up after the 2 years, with Zoro finding out that Helena is just was mentally broken after everything that happened. It was very sad. It was very emotional. And I honestly think why I think, in certain aspects, this is better than Straw Hats and the Iliad. On a whole, Straw Hats and Iliad is way better than the story. There's no denying it. It had an undeniable charm. It really replicated the One Piece writing style without using using visuals, and all of that. Well, this one, it was very different in tone. It was very more serious and more. It seemed more like a tragedy in terms of writing. Yeah, I get it, Greek tragedies and all that, with the two masks, the smiling face and the frowning face, representing comedy and tragedy respectively. This story is good. I'm not saying the story is bad. The story is good, not as good as the first one, but on its own, it's still good enough. But as a sequel, it doesn't quite measure up in certain ways to the original. It still has that kind of comedy charm. There's a part where we're introduced to a captain called. I cannot say the name. I cannot say that guy's name. Yo mama's so fat. That's literally the captain's name. I don't. I'm calm. So anyway, Yoma, I'm calling him Yoma because fuck that whole name. Basically engages with a rap battle with Helena. But it's something. It's something else, alright. Oh, that's just so stupid. Oh. Oh. Oh, it's stupid, but it's fun. It was creative. Let me just say, but man, the cardboard could have should have picked a better name for that guy. Really should have picked a better name. Uh, uh, so anyway, the story, in terms of the plot, the story does end at Zoro actually kidnaps Helena and the dog and the baby, and also brings along some other troops to just basically hang out at Sabari Archipelago and said, if I'm gonna leave Straw Hats, I at least, I want to spend some time with you and have fun and be an actual family before we go. And the story ends with them heading to Fishman, with Zoro and the rest of Straw Hats heading to Fishman Island with that tragedy of an arc. I fucking hate Fishman Island. I think that's like the one group consensus of One Piece fans. Like, everyone hates Fishman Island. Good God, was Hody Jones just a horrible villain. I'm getting off topic. Hody Jones being a horrible villain aside. But yeah, in terms of the plot itself, it's very different in tone. Like, the plot of Straw Hats and the Iliad was very goofy. It was very over the top. It was very One Piece. What I'm trying to say. While this one was more solid. It was more. It kind of reminded me of a classical Greek tragedy in terms of tone and plot, because you have Helena who wants, she went through a mental breakdown over the course of 2 years. There's an entire chapter where Zoro is reading letters with her that she wrote, and you slowly see her kind of going through the 5 stages of grief, and the sad part is that she never really got to the last stage. She was never able to ultimately get to that last stage, which is acceptance. Like, she couldn't, she got through all of them. She got through anger, sadness, bargaining, and stuff like that, but you could tell that she never was able to get to that last step. Which is very, very good writing over the fact that you're able to do this over the course of Zoro just reading letters, and that's very well done. The plot is more darker in terms. It has some of that one classic One Piece goofiness, like I say, with the rap battle. It's that stupid, but fine. But it's more classical drama in how it's trying to present itself. And again, that actually presents itself into the writing as well. The writing style is actually somewhat different than the Straw Hats and the Iliad. Like I said, even in Straw Hats and the Iliad, the writing was very much reflective of trying to be like One Piece. While this one is just more, the characters have more introspections. It's more thought-provoking. It's a very gloomy tale of gloomy miasma kind of permeating through the writing. Like, it's trying to be sad. It's trying to not be, for the most part, trying very hard not to be One Piece. And that's actually that's actually pretty cool that you're trying to say that this is different from the last story. So, since it's not really connected to One Piece as a whole, since over the course of the 2-year time skip, we more or less just followed Luffy with going to with Amazon Lily and Impel Down and the whole thing with Marineford. Like, we never really focused that much on Zoro, so more likely the author just had a lot of fun just experimenting with the writing style and stuff like that. That's honestly to be commended. So let's go to the characters. So we have, just like Straw Hat and Yellow, we have a whole bunch of characters. I do want to touch upon Zoro and Perona first. Zoro, he's great. The reason I'm talking about Zoro is mainly due to the fact that we do see him getting a fatherly side, because he finds out he has a daughter. He's he starts reconsidering maybe staying here. He actually asks her, said maybe you should come along, and she goes, "Your captain did offer." I said, "Yeah, you can come along, but no, wait, the baby. There's no way for her to be at sea." And Zoro actually completely agrees. He realizes that would bring along the daughter, and the daughter, something might happen to her, and he's like, "I don't want to risk it." So we see a very fatherly side to Zoro, which was actually very, very clever. I was like, I wasn't, like, I legit wasn't expecting them to actually have a baby, because, like, it kind of, mainly because the previous story kind of was kind of ambiguous on whether or not they actually did it or not. So I just thought, like, they didn't. They probably just cuddled and they called it a night and they left. So them finding out that they had a baby was fine. Was honestly a welcome surprise. I did like I said, most of Zoro's character development in the story came from when he found out he had a kid forward. Like the first half of the story to when he meets the baby, he pretty much stays Zoro. But once he meets the baby, and I'm intentionally leaving out the baby's name because I want to talk about the baby as his own character. Once he meets the baby, you see that he slowly starts getting paternal. It's very realistic of what a father should do, especially a father who wasn't there to raise the baby. Like the baby's like 2, and he's like, I don't know how to raise a baby. What do I do? And it's like he's just kind of awkward and trying to just go along with it, and this kind of registers more because I am a father who's unable to take care of his son, mainly because my ex is a bitch, but also because my family is horrible. Mostly my family is horrible, but yeah, so it kind of registered more with me as being a father myself. Want to see Perseus today. But that's fine. Perona, on the other hand, since for the most part we don't really know how Perona changes. Like at this point in time, we don't really know how Perona changed over the course of the 2 years, because we only got to know her when they first showed up at Mihawk's castle, a little bit at when Perona dropped off Zoro. And then that little interlude in Wano where Perona found out that Gecko Moria is still alive, and she's like, I'm gonna go after him. It's like, and Mihawk's like, oh sure, fine, whatever. Just bye. But yeah, Perona's got a Perona. Like she's basically like the over the top. I'm a princess, pretty princess stuff. Like she thinks like, oh, I'm gonna save the entire kingdom, and then I get hot cocoa and a yacht. She's like, you're not gonna get a yacht. And like King Cygnus is like, when did I offer you a yacht? He's like, and she milks it, and probably like the cutest moment is like when she gets drunk and she's actually hiccuping while she's doing her iconic like horo 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 and stuff like that. She's very cutesy. Like I said, if you Thriller Bark gets a bad rep. There's a couple of reasons to watch Thriller Bark. Brooke's backstory, everything to do with Perono, the whole thing when they fight Oars, and honestly everything to do with Kuma when he just shows up, including when he fights Perono. Poor Perona. Poor goth girl. But yeah, Perona it's probably the weakest of the main characters. I mean, honestly, main characters are kind of stretching it with Perona. She kind of just, once she gets drunk, she's more or less become irrelevant in the entirety second half, except when she's chasing Cersei. But she's fine. Then we got Helena. Oh boy, Helena. Remember in the last video I said that Helena's on the level of Valkyrie and very well written original characters, on that level. She's honestly, Helena's coming very close to becoming my personal favorite original character of all time. What the author did with her was just phenomenal. Like, there's so much to talk about her that I honestly don't want to talk about it. Like, for the most part, she's basically doing the grieving mother act. Like, she kind of slightly believes that Zoro's still alive. Sorry, my family started yelling in the background. Where was I? Helena. There's so much to go over with Helena's character. Honestly, depending on how good the third story is, all I will say is Helena may beat Valkyrie as the best original character. I think it would be a disservice to not to talk about Helena in this specific story because I want to talk, because I honestly think she's probably going to be the main, like, be the main character, like, front and center in the last story. But as she is here, she is the linchpin to everything that happens. She's completely relatable. Like I said in the previous story, she's completely relatable. She has flaws. She's very human, and she's still written incredibly well. That's still amazing, even after the first story. Like, the first story, she was good. This story, she's great. And really, my only flaw is the whole rap thing. It's still out of place. Like, I can't get my mind off that. It's just, she is so out of place. That whole thing is so out of place. It is so weird. Her not knowing what hockey is actually understandable because, you know, Ilium is very independent and more or less just trains in reliance on Sea Prism. So, for the most part, most of them not knowing what hockey is, especially since I think Ilium is in Paradise, and they don't really have a lot of hockey users in that part of the Grand Line. I'm pretty sure. I'm not 100% sure. Like, I know they only really introduced hockey more or less, I think, in Water 7. Either Water 7 or Eni's Lobby. I can't remember off the top of my head. I know we got, like, really introduced into to hockey more or less with Sabati, with Silver's Relay, but I think it was slowly. We were still slowly starting to get kind of at least talked about vaguely in Water 7, but I could be wrong. It could be just it was completely introduced with Silver's Relay and stuff like that. Mainly because, hey, we got like all these Logias. How the hell are we gonna actually fight them without thinking of like convoluted ways? I know. Let's give us like a neat little concept. But yeah, that makes sense from a narrative standpoint. Cygnus, you gotta love Cygnus. He's for the first half he was more or less just he was literally just Zoro's little buddy. I love King Cygnus. He was just so quirky. He was very stern. He's basically kind of like Zoro in a way, where like they're both like completely directionless. Like, there's a running gag. It's like, well, Zoro might get lost. Cygnus, go to the palace. All right. Wait. You're like, oh. It's like they quickly realized, oh wait, he has bad directions too. Oh, I like that little running gag. And the bit at the end where he basically baits all the print, like he basically has like a wooden mask of Zeus, like, I have the mask of Zeus. Don't make me use it. And like they're like freaking out, like, oh my god, he's gonna put on the mask, and they're like, wait a minute. Does that mask look off? It's made of, wait, is that a festival mask? Like, oh, he's playing a game. I was like, and so they kind of quiet for the most part. Sickness is great. I still love Sickness. I just honestly wish we could have seen more of him. That's really my only complaint with him. It's like, yeah, I want more. I want more of the Honk. And finally, before we get to the antagonist, there's one more character I got to bring up. The baby. The baby's so adorable. So, the baby, in honor of, honoring Zoro's legacy, named Helena named the baby Quina. Quina, after Zoro's childhood friend. And honestly, Quina's so adorable. She's so adorable. And like I like the comedy in that, like even Kuina's like, Daddy, Palace is that way. And Zoro's like, even my daughter has better direction to me. It's so cute. Honestly, I would love to see just a separate story just with the baby. Just with a day with Quina doing just baby stuff. She's basically, picture Zoro. If Zoro was a chick and Zoro was like 2 years old and had actual sense of direction, that's Quina. She basically sees her father by looking at a wanted picture. Like when she sees Zoro, it's like she gets so happy she bites him. It's like, oh god dang it, and then she keeps crawling over him and just holding him. It's like, I want Papa. She likes chocolate cookies. She actually, it's hinted that she actually has hockey skill, like some kind of. Because honestly, there's no way a baby could be that kind of keen. Possibly observation hockey, but at best. But there's, she gotta know things that she wouldn't really notice. I'm guessing. If she does turn out to have observation hockey, that becomes some clever foreshadowing. But yeah, Quina is just adorable. She like a lot, like there's so many. There's like an entire story chapter of Zoro just taking care of Quina, and Quina's just being the most adorable thing in the world. It's like I love that chapter. It's like, oh, so adorable. She's so adorable and so cutely written. It's like, it makes me want to hold the baby. It makes me want to see a picture of what she actually looks like. She's basically just baby Zoro, more or less. And she does say bye to Zoro, like, bye daddy, I love you, and stuff like that. She does the whole baby gamut. And honestly, my favorite moment with her was when Zoro's about to fight a thing of wolves. Quina looks at the wolves like, puppies, and she starts petting the puppies. And like the head wolf is like, whoa. And then Zoro tries to get her away. The wolf bites her, and then Quina's like, no, bad puppy. You're like, and then she acts adorable, and just like, oh, she's so adorable. And then Zoro's like, all right, they're distracted. We gotta get out of here. And then the wolves were like, hey, wait a minute, what happened? Hey, wait a minute, she duped us. Get her. It's so adorable. I was laughing at that scene because of how hilarious it was. That actually would be something Oda would do if they introduce a baby character. It's like, oh, Oda's the type, I could see Oda doing a bit like that. So it actually makes a lot of sense. So we come to the final two characters, final three characters, which are the three villains. So first off we have is Calypso. Calypso is fine for what he is. He's clearly being built up as an antagonist in the final story. I can respect that. He basically only took the job because of a gag that happened in the first story. Basically, if you read the first story, Nami started a rumor where Zoro was called the Hurricane Lover, and he basically, every time he showed up at an island, he wooed the women, slept with them, and then walked away because Nami was actually didn't want Helena to take Zoro away from the crew. Turns out Calypso's whole Red Baron is the Hurricane lover. He didn't like the fact that some guy took his bet. He's like, I'm only on this island because that stupid gritty-haired swordsman took my bet. Only I'm the Hurricane lover. And I'm like, fine. He does kind of, you know, we know he's a bad guy. They don't know he's a bad guy. He's written pretty well. Like I said, he's more or less being built up for the last story. So for that, he gets a pass. Now, we get to Cersei, and to a lesser extent Narcissia. So much missed opportunity with Cersei. The character was there. Like, I was once, you know, since the whole theming of Iliad was, you know, all the characters were based off characters from the Iliad, with a character based off Odyssey, I was expecting a character called Cersei to show up, because Cersei, I believe, if I remember right, Cersei was one of the antagonists of the Odyssey. Like, her whole stick is, when Odysseus crash lands on her island, she basically turns her Odysseus' entire crew into pigs, which is actually a reference to when Cersei turns Perona into a pig. Oink, oink. And even her devil fruit power is basically Cersei's power, just turning people into animals. So it's a clever adaptation of Cersei into the One Piece world, and even her motives are kind of make her less evil and more well-intentioned extremist, because she's only doing what she does because she wants to protect her family. She wants to protect her daughter, who she brought with her. She wants to protect her husband, who's like, finds kind of a scumbag and stuff like that. And then we get to Narcissia. Narcissia fulfills the role of Chef Feta in this story. She works as a objectively, she's fine. Subjectively, I hate her guts. Her whole stick is she basically talks like a millennial. Like a millennial that spends way too much time on Twitter, Facebook, Tumblr, TikTok, stuff like that. She half the time she talks in like emojis and like LOL. It's very awkward and very cringy. I like the fact at the end where like she gets hired to work on Kobe's crew as a chef, and Kobe's like, okay, if you want to join the crew, you gotta do one more thing. Okay, what is that? Stop talking like that. Just stop talking like that. It's so annoying, and I can't understand half of what you're saying. And then she basically stops on a dime. Because halfway through the story, she gets sick of Cersei kind of going too far, and she's like, no, I gotta protect the baby, and I gotta protect the Foxy. And she kind of turns good and starts working, you know, at the end she works for Kobe. Here's the problem with Cersei. Her whole thing with Narcissia is way too rushed. Like, I get what the author was going for with Cersei, like, you know, the daughter kind of realizing that what the mother is doing is just going over the top and very corrupt and stuff like that, and is basically just rebelling because she doesn't want to be like her mother. That could be a decent side plot with in terms of their character development and character interactions. The problem is it's way too rushed. It's like we don't really get a handle on Cersei and Narcissia's characters. Like, we don't enough to care that Narcissia is like rebelling against her mother. It comes off as very forced and very rushed in just at that point. If Cersei and Narcissia were more or less the main antagonist of the entire story instead of one of the two main antagonists, then I would probably give it a pass, because then you would have more time to develop their characters, develop their relationship, and kind of, you know, and make them separating seem more natural and allow you to root for Narcissia when she eventually rebels against her mother. And I also like the concept of Narcissia's devil fruit being like the litter fruit. Like, she, like, throughout the story, she actually litters she purposely litters everywhere, so that way she constantly has ammo, so use her powers to kick up dust storms, make a balloon that basically uses to fly. All this interesting stuff. It's very Oda, because, you know, Oda... Because honestly, the more unconventional fruits are usually the more powerful, are usually, like, the ones that you really, really love. Like with Luffy, you have the Gumu Gumu no Mi. He basically just turns into rubber. You have Perona, who uses the Horo Horo no Mi. And she basically just makes little ghosts to just make people depressed. And she can also make them explode. You have Nico Robin, whose whole stick is she just basically makes arms appear everywhere. Sexual innuendos including. You can add all the sexual innuendos with that. And even clone herself and stuff like that. And even more recently with Kaido. It's like when people were introduced to Kaido, everyone thought, oh, he has a dragon fruit. It's like, it's obvious. He turns into a dragon, he breathes fire, he does all the dragon stick. That's cool. What's the name of the devil fruit? And then finally, we find out the name of the devil fruit. And it's not even a dragon, it's a fish. He turns into a koi fish. And the dragon is basically the devil fruit awakening of a Zoan. And then people found out that it's like, oh, it's a reference to like an ancient Japanese myth of the koi fish going up a waterfall, and then to constantly fight the current, stuff like that. When it reaches the top, the gods reward its courage and its strength by turning it into a dragon. And I thought, that's pretty clever. I love the fact that Oda baited us like that, but it's still clever. And so this kind of fits in like that crazy idea that you wouldn't really see in any other shonen manga or shonen anime except for One Piece, because it's just so out there. Like, you wouldn't expect the power to control litter to be worth reading, and then seeing how Narcissia uses it. It's like, all right, I want to see more of Narcissia, but then she goes off with Cody, and I'm like, I'm like sad. And finally, we get Region, and just like Cersei, Region is a disappointment of a villain. Again, concept-wise, Region is good because he has unfinished business with the Isle of Ilium. Basically, in the first story, we kind of get what happened with Cygnus' father. For those who don't know, who probably didn't read the first story, or I think I mentioned in the review, the world government tried to take over Ilium. Helena's father, King Cygnus, put on the mask of Zeus to basically wipe out the navy. And basically, what happened was, as payment, he lost all his strength, so he was very atrophied, and he had to sacrifice 1,000 of his men. One of the people on those ships was Region, who got zapped in the face and fell in the sea. And they were able to rescue him, but that left him kind of disfigured. Like, his head is slightly split open, because it turns out this guy has the Hydra fruit. And I thought, okay, that's so cool. We finally got a Hydra devil fruit. Like, in chapter 23 of the story, we kind of get the author unintentionally foreshadowing something that happens in Wano. It's like, hey, did you know that there's a Japanese Hydra that the people beat with, like, making it drink and get drunk? Okay, let me actually find the author's note, specifically what it says. Yeah, fun fact, there's a Japanese Hydra story in which the Hydra is defeated by being made drunk with wine. Found out by watching the new Shin Gojira movie and couldn't resist incorporating it. And then, sure enough, we were introduced to Korozumi Orochi. He has the Japanese Hydra fruit. Coincidence? I think not! But yeah, Region as a concept is good. He's basically a wrathful Marine captain who basically who's not even bothering to care what the Marines are doing. He basically is saying, I'm literally just want to kill everyone. I just want to destroy this entire place. He goes over, he turns evil. Every time he just like the typical Hydra, unlike the Yamata Yonorochi, every time his head cuts off, two come up. and there's so much crazy shit with him. And just like the lesser known fact about the Hydra, Hydra does actually breathe more than fire. I think certain stories about the Hydra do have it breathe like ice and not ice, but more lightning. I do remember reading one story where the Hydra did in fact breathe lightning. So region being able to breathe ice and poison and plasma and all this crazy stuff, depending on where the head is in conjunction with the body. Like the furthest ones is like fire, but the ones centered do like all the crazy elemental stuff with like fire and ice and stuff like that. And, like that's really cool. That's a really cool concept. The problem is, just like Cersei, we're not given enough context to really care about his character because he's mainly just a peripheral figure. Like, him being a peripheral figure, it works fine because every time when they mention Regent in the story, everyone like kind of freaks out. It's like, holy shit, he's still alive. Shit, but we're not given context for why. We know he was involved in a whole thing with the Mask of Zeus, but we don't know the context of that. So it's very hard to get invested in him as an actual villain because despite the fact, however, the author intended to utilize him, it ultimately ended with him kind of being throwaway. Like, contrast with Cersei, where a little more thought was given to her, and it at least made us care a little bit. It was just hers was more or less rushed, while Regent's is just, why should we care about him? And in any other shonen anime, we probably wouldn't care, but this is One Piece, and One Piece has a habit of going, like, in any arc, we kind of get to know the character and, like, all this stuff, like, all this crazy stuff. So it kind of comes off as a disconnect where we have these two really cool villains. Like I said, I'm giving Calypso a pass. We get these really cool villains who have really interesting concepts that are and the concepts are actually executed fairly well. The problem is just we're not given enough to work with their characters to make us care for them at the end of the day. And that's pretty much the only problems I have with the story. Those two characters is my only criticism about the story. I wanted so hard to care about these characters. It was just hard to care about these characters. Not to mention Yo Mama's so fat. It's just get rid of him. Or at least change his name. Can you like I don't. Oh, I don't think that was so stupid. I'll get over that name. Pacing. It does keep it has a more methodical, slower pace. And the writing style, like I said in the plot, the writing style is very different from Straw Hats and the Iliad. It reflects a more contemplative mood and a more close to like classical Greek tragedy and stuff like that. So, in terms of writing, in terms of pacing, it's fine. It's very good for what it's trying to be. Grammar errors, I didn't see no grammar errors. That's fine. And anything with the, all that. So now that's left is what I recommend the story. It's not as an overall story, it's not as good as Straw Hats and the Iliad. But I would still recommend it because it's still a very enjoyable story. It still has a lot of charm. It has a lot of personality. The characters are good. Even like I said, despite the fact that I had criticism about Cersei and Regent, I still liked them as characters. They just need to be worked on more. Favorite part: the entire chapter where Zoro hangs out with Quina. It's just adorable. It's so cute. I honestly wanted to give the nod to the fight with Regent because I actually really liked that whole part where Zoro and Helena were fighting Regent. I thought that was a really good written fight scene. But I had to give it to the baby. It was just, Quina was so adorable. She was just, I loved her so much, and I just couldn't get over how adorable she was. I want to see more of the baby. Give me more of the baby. Give me my baby. But yeah, I really, really loved that entire chapter. It was very cutesy and stuff like that. So, what would I change about this story? Really, honestly, you're just looking on ways to improve Cersei and Regent. So, let's start with Regent, because he's the one who needs the most work. And the first thing that comes to mind is employing an old tactic that One Piece likes to use. The flashback. If we want the reader to get invested in Regent as not only a villain, but as a character, we need the full context of what happened all those years ago when King Cygnus put on the mask. You can easily just slot this in, like, you can easily just make up an extra chapter or two sometime. Like, probably when King Cygnus first hears about Regent, you can probably figure out how to slot it in then. But we need that full flashback chapter. We need that full flashback of what happened back then. Because if we don't, because we need to figure out how to make us care about Regent as a villain. And honestly, again, the easiest way is just that flashback. But also, throughout the story, have him and Cersei kind of communicate, and we kind of slowly see, and we kind of get at least a little bit more. It's like I said, Regent's concept is good. The problem is there's just not much done with him to make us care. And the same thing could be said with Cersei. Cersei, again, interesting concept, but the whole dynamic with her and this Narcissia is just rushed and very ill-filling. Plus, I honestly think there was so much potential with Narcissia that instead of having her go with Kobe, I probably would have suggested having Narcissia stay in Ilium and try, and Cygnus saying, we'll give you a pass, but and give her kind of a, and let Cygnus let her stay in Ilium so that way she can learn how to be a cook and help everyone out. Because I think, with like, I'm pretty sure we're not going to see Kobe's crew. We're going to see Kobe, but we're not going to see Kobe's crew. So, and again, there could be more to do with Narcissia. Like, she has a lot of potential to just show how creative the author can make her little fruit. With Narcissia, with Cersei, we should see the full extent of her powers. More like, we know she turns people into animals. She controls them by yodeling. She's able to transform them back and forth by just yelling out how they sound, like the noise they make. Hence why they do the whole old Nick Cersei had a farm, E-I-E-I-O, and on this farm they had a goose, E-I-E-I-O, with a honk honk, and like they turn into the goose. But with Cersei's character, she's meant to be a well-intentioned extremist. And we're supposed to see her and her daughter start to fracture because Narcissia really doesn't like the path that how far her mother's taken it. So what I would suggest with Cersei and Narcissia was simply just write in more parts with them. And with them, slowly start the fighting over everything. Like, we're introduced to Cersei right at I believe, chapter 11. Like, we're first officially introduced to Cersei and Narcissia in chapter 11 of a 33 chapter story. And I think maybe, and honestly the easiest way would just be have them, kind of interact more and more with Narcissia slowly starting to, like, say, I don't really like doing this, and Cersei kind of getting more and more controlling and over the top and overbearing, and then finally, Cersei with Narcissia, protecting Quina from her mother, it would just come off as more believable. Just give them more time to breathe. That's really it. But also, and that's pretty much what I would change with Zoro's Odyssey. Just add that flashback chapter, and give more time to develop Regent's character and give more time to develop the dynamic between Cersei and Narcissia, so that way when Narcissia rebels against her mother, it's more believable. That's really it. So that is my review of Zoro's Odyssey. I still like the story. Like even the flaws I said still doesn't detract from me liking the story. And I do think, and I cannot wait for when Helena's Aenid finishes, because I want to see can Helena beat Valkyrie, because I love Valkyrie. Valkyrie is still my favorite original character for how bonkers her character was with the whole deconstruction of villain Sue thing, and how much nuance her character had throughout the entire story. I just want to see can Helena beat Valkyrie. I want to see this author doing it. I'm throwing down the challenge. Can Helena beat Valkyrie in terms of the best original character? I want to see that. But I probably won't review Aenid until that story's done. Now, before I finish the story, I would like to say I'm almost done catching up with everything I do. I have about less than 20, so probably once I get down to 15 or 10, I'm gonna start taking suggestions again. I will make a separate video talking about that, and maybe do another Q&A. But until then, I am almost done. Like I'm gonna do the Frostwell trilogy, which is 3 episodes of Super Koopalings at once, and then I think in my roulette wheel I picked the Steven Universe that was suggested. But yeah, I like this story. I like Zoro's Odyssey, not as much as Straw Hats in the Iliad, but I like this story overall. So that is my review. This has been Dark Symphony 777, and cut.